You're listening to Healthcare Now Radio. Stand by for This Just In, the latest in healthcare innovation and technology trends with your HIT advisor, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these half-hour segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network, as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. And before we dive into my guest today, I want to take a moment to let everyone know that we'll be broadcasting the This Just In radio show again live from the HIMSS annual conference. The HIMSS conference this year will be in Orlando, Florida, starting on February 20th with 35,000 of your closest industry friends. We already have another great slate of CEO, CIO, leading care providers, industry thought leaders, and certainly policymakers joining the show again. Some familiar faces, but many new as well. More to come from the HIMSS media team in the coming weeks, but we'll do our same two-day format and broadcast live from the HIMSS show floor on February 20th and 21st. We even have a special stage built to resemble the ESPN College Game Day look and feel. So hopefully everyone is registering for the HIMSS 17 in Orlando, and we'll see you there. It's guaranteed to be another great, fun, informative time. For this episode, though, my 84th episode, we're going to speak to a good, longtime friend, Steve Weisman. Steve is an attorney by trade, focusing on estate planning, probate, and identity theft. Steve is also a professor, editor, and a very accomplished writer. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Always good to talk with you.
Thank you, my friend. And also, I think that I actually may have, you're also a radio personality, and I think I might have got my radio chops from you, my friend.
I think you developed everything. I think the moment you were born, you came out with multiple chops. But, yeah, I've been involved with talk radio for, oh my gosh, since the 1980s, and I'm also the editor of Talkers, legal editor of Talkers Magazine, which is the main trade journal for talk television and radio.
That's cool. I didn't even know that. We've actually, certainly for my audience, and as you probably can tell, we've known each other for many decades, and I believe, I was trying to think of this before we came live here on the air, and I think it's about, I was 12 years old when I may have first met you, and maybe even earlier because you're friends with my family. I think even before I may have realized it. So,
yeah, we go way back.
We certainly do. So, for my audience, tell us a little bit more about your background, where you grew up, and items like that.
Well, I'm a Massachusetts born and bred, and I went up and down the Mass Turnpike for college. I went to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and then went back east, and back east from there is to Boston College for law school. And then I've practiced law in Massachusetts since the 1970s. Also been involved a lot in talk radio and in also talk television, in addition to my law practice, about 12 books, and have evolved into an expert in the area of cybersecurity, scams, and identity theft. I have a blog, Scamicide.com, where every day I provide updated information on the latest things that are going on in cybersecurity, scams, and identity theft. And, frankly, boy, with the Internet of Things and our interconnectedness, it's never been it's going back, I guess, to Dickens. It's the best of times and the worst of times. And, I like being involved.
Oh, that's terrific. That's spot on. So, well, first of all, I guess, how did you kind of find your career path? I think I get that question a lot. You're an educator, you're a professor at college, and so you probably give your story, and try to coach people up and help people find their path. But how did because you do have a very diverse background, so how did you find your path and your way through all of that? And how did it come to fruition?
I don't know if I did. They say all who wander are not lost. And I'm telling my students, well, I guess there are a couple of interesting things I tell my students, and one of them, well, hopefully more than that, but one of them is, I said, the answer to every question is it's about the money. And certainly that is a factor. And then at the last class of every semester, I tell them, don't make a decision on your career path because of the money. You follow your passion, and the money will come. And that's where, I've followed various curiosities, and again, have been involved in different areas of the law. Did trial law for a while. I'm interested in writing. Knocked out about 12 books. I've done talk radio since the 1980s, and the French philosopher Albert Camus was once saying that he was in a constant state of becoming. So I think that's kind of me. Is just I continue as we all do. You evolve as long as you're vertical.
Very well said. And so I love. You're certainly one of a kind, but there's a lot of people that think like you in the Amherst and the Pioneer Valley part of Western Massachusetts. Yeah. But I'm so proud to be from that area because of the diversity and because of just the self-realization and of just the way we live and how we enjoy life.
Yeah.
Cool. So talking a little bit about I guess your background. You had an office. I'm trying to wrap my brain. You had an office where the Boston Strangler was he convicted there?
No, not with the Strangler. But I've had. I was involved with a criminal law firm in Boston. Crane, Inker, and O'Teary is one of my first works, and we represented a lot of criminals. Actually, it was very interesting, Justin. This law firm had two main sources of clients, and one was we had one of the most prominent divorce lawyers in town, Monroe Inker, and one of the top criminal lawyers. So we defended organized crime and big-scale divorces. And what you would see is, we would see divorces, we would see good people at their absolute worst, and then with the criminals, we would see bad people at their absolute best. Yeah, I mean, later on, I taught in the state prison system as well for many, many years, which provided me with an education also.
Yeah, no, I thought. No, that's fascinating. I thought I was in your office one day, and I think your office had there was some famous person was either prosecuted or in that space. But I was just trying to drive. This is like 25 years ago. I mean, I was fortunate enough to intern with you. But but so before we dive into the cybersecurity aspects, tell us about kind of a little bit of a foundation background as your career as a writer. 12 books that you've done. What does they clearly encompass?
I'm glad you asked about it, because writing was always one of my passions, and it was something, even as a high school kid, I was always fascinated by writing. I had, like you do, a love of language, and I had written magazine articles. Actually, I used to write a column in the forum section for Playboy for years, and it had written magazine articles. But we're talking maybe a top of 5,000 words. The book always looked like something beyond what I thought I was capable of. But you always have to stretch yourself, as you know. And the first book I did was a book dealing with elder planning. It was a guide to elder planning, which later became an area where I not just practiced but also taught. And from there, got involved with a good publisher, and I've written a lot of books dealing with two main topics. One is financial planning, and a number of financial planning books dealing with planning for baby boomers, annuities, IRA planning, and then I kind of drifted into cybersecurity and truth about avoiding scams and identity theft alert, and a number of books in that area. And the idea is I try to explain difficult concepts in a way that is entertaining and understandable to people. And so both in the area of financial planning and cybersecurity, they're important areas for people that can sometimes be overwhelming. So I try and make them merely whelming, bring them down to earth.
Yeah, and you do a phenomenal job. I remember a couple of your early books, certainly in elder planning, we looked at just to make sure that my Graham was following the best paths possible. And I remember calling you a few times to get your advice on some situations, and obviously you're a true expert at it. So also, some of your TV stuff, I remember watching, I think it was Dr. Phil one day, and you were on it. I don't think, we didn't know. Jen was just happened to have it on or back to the house. I'm like, that's Steve. So that was terrific. Tell us about that experience.
You know, it was very funny, Justin, and funny that you put it in that way, because when I got a call from the Dr. Phil show, I thought a friend of mine was putting me on. And, you know, they talked to me, and this was around the time of Bernie Madoff, and they wanted to know some thoughts about scams, and then, you know, would I be willing to come out within a week? You know, it's like, okay, can you come out next week? And it was, sure. And then I didn't hear from them for about 3 or 4 days, and I was saying to my wife, Carol, I said, you know, I think somebody was putting me on. And then the very next day, they're contacting me, flying me out to California. Met Dr. Phil, who was very nice, and it was interesting too, because my wife said, "No, don't get your hopes up. You're probably going to be sitting in the audience. He'll throw a question to you, and that'll be it." And instead, he had me up there sitting with him, and they brought in about 3 different types of scam victims, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, well, she recorded it, and we had that recording, I think, saved in our DVR until DirecTV took that DVR away to upgrade it. We had it like 3 or 4 years.
That's funny.
It was just to turn on the TV, and there you are. It was great. And was it one of your first big TV spots on scams and so forth, or did you do ones before that?
You know, I had done local television in the Boston area and out in Springfield, Massachusetts, but never anything on a national level like that. And since that time, I've done through Skype. I've done Sky News in England. I've done the CBS Morning Show, ABC World News, a number of national things, and I just got a call setting something up with Russian television to do by Skype, and that'll be something. Apparently there's an English-speaking news station on Russian TV, so I'm kind of looking forward to that and figuring out how I'm going to talk about hacking with Russians.
Oh, goodness gracious, that could be a heated debate there. Is it Russia Times? I've seen Russia Times over here. They've been exploding. So that's great. And from an audience, for those that may have joined a little late, my guest today is cybersecurity expert and just all-around great guy, Stephen J.J. Weisman. That's Stephen James Jerome Weisman.
There you go.
I remember that from my childhood. So let's dive into healthcare, because I think 90% of my listeners are really from the healthcare space. So, and obviously, you know, cyber crimes and identity theft and data protection, key and top of mind in healthcare. But why is the healthcare industry so ripe for hacking, and who's doing it?
Well, it's interesting who's doing it. First of all, it's right because it's like the bank robber. Why did he rob banks? Because that's where the money is. And you've got the perfect storm when it comes to being a target for hacking when it comes to the healthcare industry, because you've got a very highly technologically sophisticated business that has a lot of personal information, and it's accessed from various places. So the doctors have to be able to access the hospital and other providers. So you also there's a part of the internet called the dark web, and this is where the bad guys who have stolen all of the credit cards and other information go to sell it to other bad guys. Well, when you look on the dark web, the most valuable information is healthcare insurance information, and so that's one of the reasons that you'll get hackers. They will steal health insurance info, sell that to people to be able to use it. That creates all kinds of problems, potentially even deadly problems, because you can have the victim of this healthcare identity theft, their medical records can get interspersed with that of the identity thief, and HIPAA regulations make it all but impossible to get the bad guy stuff off of there. So that's something. And then it's also interesting that the Chinese hackers and government-sponsored hackers, they are big fans of big data, and they will get as much information as they can, and in some instances, Chinese hackers have even tried to get medical information that may be embarrassing to particular people within power structures, companies, and government, and use that for extortion. So there are people that will hack into it, and there's also, of course, ransomware, as we saw with the Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital. So it's an important industry. It's highly sophisticated and highly digital, and therefore it's highly targeted by the hackers.
So, no, that's fascinating. So are the top sponsors, I mean, and I don't want to, call anybody out that should be called out, but is it China? Is it Russia? Is it our own U.S. citizens? Is it another country? Who are the sponsors, in your opinion?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
It is all of them. And here's an interesting thing, Justin. Yeah. When it comes to the medical identity theft and the vulnerability there, it's probably the one place the Russians aren't going. The Chinese definitely are. But you'll get organized crime, disorganized crime. You'll have the kid down the street. You'll have the computer expert. Interpol once said, not too long ago, there are only about 100 really cyber criminal geniuses who create these great zero defect malware out there that's used in ransomware and other attacks. But what they do is they put it up on the dark web and sell it to less sophisticated criminals. And you should see the websites upon which they sell it, Justin. It's amazing because their business model is highly sophisticated. They will give discounts for bulk purchases. They provide tech support. I mean, it's like any other business, except it's totally illegitimate. And so that's part of the problem, is you don't have to be a criminal genius to go after a Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital or a Sony or the Office of Personnel Management. All you need to do is buy the software, and then the biggest problem facing America today in cybersecurity, according to the Secretary of Homeland Security, is spear phishing, because all of this malware has to get downloaded. And the way it's downloaded is with emails to employees that lure them into clicking on links or downloading attachments that bring forth the malware, and often it's what we call 0 days, which means there is no security software yet that will protect you from that. So it's quite a business.
Wow. So what steps should hospitals and practices and others be taking to protect their security?
Yeah, here's the thing. There are a lot of basic steps, and one of the things is places are more and more vulnerable in their mobile devices. Now, you say you got to be a rocket scientist to be at NASA. NASA had a laptop with totally unencrypted information. It was stolen, and they lost a lot of sensitive data. Then it happened again just a couple of years later, and it's the old fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. NASA should know better. So you need protocols in place. You need the security software. You need to train your employees about cybersecurity and spear phishing. And along with the security software, there's when it comes to ransomware, which has hit government institutions, it hits hospitals, it hits businesses, there are a couple of easy solutions. And one is, of course, backing up everything. Back up your data, so even if it gets through, you're going to be okay. But there's another thing that isn't used enough, and it's called whitelisting software. Blacklisting, we know, it prevents certain programs from being downloaded. But when the bad guys develop the new stuff, they can get that in because it's not on the blacklisting. Whitelisting software, terribly sophisticated, but what it will do is it will not allow anything to be downloaded unless it is already pre-approved. So what you want to do is do things like, along with training your personnel, and limit the access. Everybody shouldn't have access to everything because sometimes these are insider hacks. But security software and particularly whitelisting software.
No, thank you. That's fascinating. Excellent. Tell us about ransomware. You brought this up sometimes, and I've seen a little bit on the news, but why is this such a threat?
It's huge. It's probably the biggest malware out there now, and there are companies that are falling prey to this. There are accounting firms, there are law firms, there have been police departments that have been hit. And what it is, it's a specific type of malware. Again, someone clicks on a link and downloads this particular malware that encrypts all of your data. You can't read it, you can't access it. And generally they'll say, you pay us a Bitcoin ransom within 48 hours or we'll destroy all of your stuff. Just this past week, a college in California paid the ransom. Some have paid the ransom, others have not, and actually had data destroyed. So the key thing here is you want to, in small businesses and bigger businesses, you want to put in whitelisting. You want to back up your data and back it up in a couple of ways. You want maybe portable, portable hardware to have it stored in, as well as storing it in the cloud. And here's one of the sad parts, Justin. This is an evolving type of malware. There's not just one type of ransomware. And there are companies that are falling prey to ransomware for which we already have security software because they're not updating their security software. So always keep your security software up to date. Use whitelisting and make sure that you're training your employees. My motto is, trust me, you can't trust anyone. Never download or click on a link until you've confirmed.
No, that's terrific. And that's just great advice all the way around. I know that I'm constantly getting on my lovely wife. She's amazing, but she does not like to do updates. She will not update her phone. She will not update her computer. She will not update her iPad. She just, I don't know. I'm like, and I'm the exact opposite. The moment the update's available, I'm the fact I'm in IT, and I just know the vulnerabilities of all of our devices, and so just keep it updated.
Oh, you couldn't be more right.
I was thinking when you're talking there about, do they actually erase data? So you're telling me they really do. It's not just a threat, because I would think part of it could just be kind of extortion, but it's truly really a threat. Are you that sophisticated to truly get in there and disrupt and delete my data? And you're saying, yes, they really can do that, and they do that.
They do, but it's funny you mentioned that, Justin, because there are some really unsophisticated, lazy cyber thieves who are out there telling people, threatening, we will do this, but they really don't even have the ransomware, and they don't have the capabilities of locking it up. But they are the minority. Most of the time, what we've seen is, and we've actually seen some companies go out of business because all of their data gets destroyed. And yeah, the capability is there. The original kind of malware for ransomware wasn't as sophisticated. Sometimes you could get it, you could retrieve it. But the stuff out today, a lot of it done by Russian and Eastern European hackers is so good. You got to be backed up.
Yeah, it's real. So in the closing couple minutes we have about 2 minutes more, any legislation or regulation that you're tracking? Certainly we have a change of administration. My shows, actually the last 3 shows I've done have been focused heavily on policy and what we can expect out of the new administration. But anything that you're tracking?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and I don't know if it's an offshoot of the fact that President Trump has kind of poo-pooed what's happened with Russian hackers, although more recently he has responded to that. But Congress is picking up they're picking up the lance here, because what happened is there is a real bipartisan, when could we ever hear that? A bipartisan bill that was just introduced this week that that would create a select committee on cybersecurity to be a central overseeing agency from multiple federal agencies. Congress, I feel okay. I mean, I'm not like Mark Twain said the opposite of progress was Congress, but Congress is really starting to act here.
Yeah. No, I agree. We don't have much bipartisan. I was fortunate enough to work on a bill back in 2015 called the Medicare Access and Chip Reauthorization Act of 2015, but it was a bipartisan bill, bicameral, House, Senate, Republican, Democrat. They moved it through Congress to really update and modernize our healthcare system. But that was the last bipartisan bill passed through Congress. So it sounds like you're mentioning now the second one, at least in the last 3 years, it's gone through Congress. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, good, because we desperately need it. So,
that's for sure.
In closing, I always ask this question of my guests, and to be honest, it's now become its own segment. My producers have created their own This Just In radio show segment on this one piece. But it's inspiring. But what is your favorite place to get or be inspired?
You know, that's just a wonderful question. There's so much noise that you sometimes don't hear just your own brain doing its workings. And quite candidly, my best thinking is, and inspiration comes when I'm not trying. And it's early morning walks that I take with my wife and my dog. We never see another person. We're out in nature. And you would, actually I was going to say you'd be amazed. You wouldn't. I know you understand. Your mind will both clear and get flooded with insights.
And what is the name of your dog?
Remington vom Seelenball.
I know. I love it. And we are friends, obviously, in life and on Facebook. And you have one of the most beautiful dogs on the planet. So I'm glad that you were able to mention his name because he's a beautiful dog.
He is. I'm a little biased, but he is.
Awesome. Well, Steve, it was great to have you on the show, my friend. And I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
You know, Justin, you do such important work in so many areas. It's a privilege to know you, and I smile whenever I think of how you've grown. You're a great guy.
Thank you, my friend. And thank you to everyone for listening and joining us today. Please tune in weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. And as always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag ThisJustin so we can respond to your comments from the show. In addition, all of my content will be posted on my website at justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a terrific week, and hopefully we'll see you all in Orlando. Stop by the show. Thanks again, Steve.